I wasn't snooping. That's what I kept telling myself later. I wasn't rifling through her things like some jealous cliché. I was just hanging up her coat, same as I always did. Taylor had this habit of leaving it on the armchair by the door, like even that last effort walking 10 extra feet to the closet was too much after a long day. So I did it for her. No thought. Just muscle memory. That night, she came in later than usual. Almost 10:30. Her key clicked in the lock and I heard her heels softly tapping across the wood floor. She called out a quick, "Hey babe," barely pausing before heading straight to the bathroom. I caught a glimpse of her as she passed, the faintest flush in her cheeks, a wisp of something sweet and citrusy trailing behind her. She didn't kiss me. Didn't make eye contact. Just vanished into the sound of running water. And then the coat. It was soft, dark navy wool with a lining like silk. The same coat I bought her last Christmas. I remember how her eyes lit up when she tried it on, how she spun in front of the mirror and joked that it made her feel too fancy for this zip code. That coat had seen better days. Coffee spills, subway rides, crumpled car seats. But as I went to hang it up, something inside the pocket caught my hand. Paper. Thin, crinkled, folded once. I pulled it out like it had burned me. It was a receipt. One of those slim thermal kinds with neat, minimalist font and a tiny logo at the top. La Belle Vigna. The restaurant name stopped me cold. I didn't need to look at the address. I knew it. We'd gone there for our 5th anniversary back when we were still in that we can't afford this, but let's pretend for one night phase of our marriage. It was the kind of place where the waiter pulled your chair out for you and pronounced the specials like poetry. We had splurged on wine, laughed too loud, shared a dessert, and left a tip that hurt a little. But it was perfect. This receipt had the same format. 2 glasses of Pinot Noir. Oysters. A filet with roasted garlic butter. 1 creme brulee with 2 spoons. Paid with her secondary card, the one she used for client stuff. The total came out to more than we spent on groceries that week. I didn't put it back. I didn't even fold it. I placed it right on her nightstand beside her phone charger and lavender hand cream as if it belonged there. Then I waited. She came out of the bathroom in a cloud of steam, wearing her oversized sleep shirt and towel drying her hair. She caught sight of the receipt almost immediately. Her expression didn't change. Not even a flicker of surprise. "Oh," she said as she picked it up. "That's from last night. Dinner with a potential client." She said it like it was nothing. Like she was commenting on the weather. Her voice was even, pleasant, perfectly rehearsed. It was kind of a last-minute thing. You know how it goes. They wanted to go somewhere nice. Big account, tech startup guy with a bunch of investors. She looked right at me when she said it. No flinch, no stammer. She tucked the receipt into the drawer like she was filing away a grocery list. I nodded slowly. "Oysters, huh? Pretty fancy for a client dinner." She smiled like I'd told a joke. "Yeah, I know." He insisted. Said they set the tone or whatever. I didn't argue, I was just there to close the deal. I should have let it go. Should have trusted her. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Trust. But there was something off. Not in what she said, but in how she said it. No guilt. No embarrassment. No trace of "oops, got caught with something that looks bad." She wasn't nervous. She was polished. It felt less like an explanation and more like a press release. A version of the truth that had been tweaked and tested and rehearsed in her head until she could deliver it without blinking. And that's what shook me. Because when you're married to someone long enough, you know the difference. You know when they're genuinely tired versus when they're emotionally checked out. You know what it looks like when they're scrambling for an excuse and what it looks like when the excuse has already been scripted. For a second, just a second, something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt. Not shame. Something colder. Calculating. Like she was watching me for a reaction. Measuring how much I'd swallow. Testing the waters. And I gave her nothing. I smiled, nodded again, and said, "Hope it went well." "It did," she replied smoothly. "Fingers crossed he signs on next week. It'd be a big win." She kissed me then, light, fleeting, almost an afterthought, and headed to bed. I stood there in the hallway, hands still damp from the coat, and wondered what exactly I'd just seen. Because in that moment, the doubt started. Not big and loud, but quiet. Like a low hum in the background. A whisper at the edge of something larger. Not proof. Not yet. But it was the first crack. And once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. I didn't say anything the next day. Or the day after that. I didn't bring up the receipt or the oysters or the second credit card. Instead, I tucked it away. Not the receipt. I never saw that again. I meant the feeling. That nagging, itchy sensation in the back of my mind. Like someone had moved a picture frame just a few inches off center. What I did do quietly was start paying attention. Not to what Taylor said, but how she said it. When she kissed me, I noticed if her lips lingered or barely brushed mine. When she smiled, I looked to see if it reached her eyes. When she laughed, I waited to hear if it was real or just a cover for something else. And once I tuned in, I couldn't stop noticing, like how her perfume had changed subtly, but enough for me to tell. It used to be something soft and floral. Now it was bold, spiced, like she wanted to be noticed. Her shoes were suddenly higher, her dresses tighter. Her hair had been styled differently, more volume, more curl. A style she'd once mocked when we saw it on a TV host, calling it too try-hard. Now it was her go-to. First, I chalked it up to stress. She was always talking about the pressure at work, the constant grind, the competition. "You've got to stay sharp," she'd say. "You don't get a seat at the table by playing it safe." And maybe that was true. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But then came the seminar. 2 weekends out of nowhere. "Networking event in Denver," she'd said. "Mandatory. Our whole team is going." She'd packed light, only a carry-on. She'd worn her black leather jacket, the one she rarely touched, and her new ankle boots. But here's the part that stuck with me. Denver was where her ex, Ryan, had moved last year. She said she hadn't spoken to him in ages. Blocked his number, deleted the photos. But I remembered the way her voice had cracked when she first mentioned he was relocating. "Weird," she'd said. "I can't picture him in the mountains. He always hated the cold." She flew out Friday morning, came back Sunday night, looked different, relaxed almost, like someone who'd been away from their life just long enough to remember what it was like to be someone else. She didn't bring up Ryan. I didn't ask. But something hung in the air that night as we sat on the couch, half watching a movie. Something unspoken. Her head rested on my shoulder, and her phone buzzed 3 times before she finally silenced it and slipped it face down onto the table. She didn't check it. Not once. It was the same routine every night now, 8 p.m. Do not disturb. She claimed it was to keep herself from getting work notifications and to help her unwind. But I knew better. I'd seen the new passcode, the extra security measures, the second number labeled emergency use only. And then there was the bracelet, a silver chain with a tiny charm, shaped like a compass. She said it was from a client. A thank you gift. I recognized it immediately. Ryan had worn one just like it on his keychain back when they were dating. She used to call it cheesy. His little symbol of freedom. She never wore jewelry like that, but for a few weeks it was always on her wrist. Until suddenly, it wasn't. No explanation. It just vanished. When I asked about it casually over dinner, she smiled and said she must have left it at the gym. "Didn't even notice," she added, laughing. "Shows how sentimental I am, huh?" And I nodded, because what else was I supposed to do? But the memory kept stacking, like bricks in a wall. All these little things, these barely there inconsistencies. The way she angled her phone away from me. The way she laughed too loudly when she said she had to work late again. The new lingerie tag I found in the laundry. Something dark and lacy from a boutique I'd never heard of. When I held it up, she snatched it and shrugged. "Impulse buy," she said. "Retail therapy." It was always retail therapy. A new dress, a new scent, a new password. And through it all, she kept drifting. Not physically. She was still there, still doing the same routines. Morning coffee, gym, quick kisses before work, Netflix at night. But mentally, emotionally, she was slipping sideways, like we were on 2 parallel tracks that used to overlap, and now we were slowly moving apart. I'd wake up and feel the space between us, even though we were inches away. I'd reach for her in bed, and she'd already be turned toward the wall. When we talked, she'd nod, smile, respond, but it was autopilot. Like I was talking to a version of her that had been left behind while the real her was somewhere else, living some secret version of her life. And still, I said nothing, because saying something meant confronting it, naming it, and once you name a thing, you can't take it back. Once you say, "I think something's wrong," then it becomes real. You open the box and have to look at what's inside. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I started collecting things. Mentally. Quietly. A second phone number scribbled on the back of a grocery list. An Uber receipt from a neighborhood where none of her clients lived. A pair of heels she'd worn out even though she said she was just meeting coworkers for happy hour. And every time I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Because that's what love does. It gives and gives and gives until you don't recognize your own reflection in the mirror anymore. But deep down, a shift had started. I was no longer waiting to be proven wrong. I was waiting for confirmation that I'd been right all along. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember that because I wasn't supposed to be home. My business trip had been booked for 2 weeks, a quick overnight in Charlotte, in and out, back before dinner on Wednesday. At least that's what she thought. But the meeting got canceled last minute. Something about a logistics issue. I was already at the airport when I got the call. So I turned around, told my assistant not to say anything to anyone yet, and took a cab home. I didn't expect to find anything. Not really. Maybe I was hoping I would. Maybe I wanted to catch her in the middle of something because at least then I wouldn't have to wonder anymore. I wouldn't have to keep playing the part of the naive, trusting husband. I wouldn't have to keep second-guessing every smile, every silence, every carefully packaged explanation. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. Taylor always left a podcast running, some background chatter about marketing or startups. But today there was nothing. Just the distant hum of the fridge and the steady tick of the hallway clock. I set my bag down and stood still, listening. That's when I heard it, laughter. Not loud. Just a faint, melodic giggle from upstairs, followed by a man's voice. Deep. Confident. Familiar, but not in the way you want someone to be. I didn't move. Not right away. I stood at the foot of the staircase, hand on the banister, heart thudding so loud I thought it might give me away. They didn't hear me come in. They weren't even trying to be quiet. That's what struck me. They were comfortable. Like this wasn't new. Like this was routine. Her voice drifted down, soft and playful. "You're such an idiot," she said, giggling again. Then the sound of movement. Fabric. A bed creaking lightly. Another laugh. Then quiet. I sat on the stairs. Not to sneak up, not to storm in. I sat down because my knees weren't working right anymore. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. And maybe deep down I knew I was about to learn everything I didn't want to know. I pulled out my phone. I didn't know what I was doing at first. My thumb moved before my brain caught up. I opened the voice memo app. Hit record. I didn't aim to catch anything in particular, just needed proof. Something real. Something that couldn't be twisted or polished or reframed into another client dinner or networking event. 20 minutes passed. Maybe more. I didn't time it. I just sat there, frozen, as the weight of reality sank into my bones. At some point, I heard footsteps, careful, hushed. Then the back door opened. I leaned sideways just enough to catch a glimpse through the hallway window. A man I didn't recognize stepped out, his shirt half-buttoned, phone in hand. He moved with practiced ease, like someone who knew the layout, who knew which door didn't squeak. He didn't look back. Didn't rush. Just walked into the alley and disappeared. I didn't move until the lock clicked shut behind him. Then I stood, walked back upstairs, and paused outside the bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, the way she always left it when she was alone in the house. Inside, I heard the rustle of fabric. A drawer sliding shut. Her phone buzzing. Normal sounds. Domestic. Ordinary. I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. I turned, walked to the guest room, and sat down. My fingers trembled as I played back the recording. There wasn't anything damning, no names, no declarations. But the tone told the story. Laughter. Whispered jokes. The unmistakable rhythm of Macy. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a bad decision after too many drinks. This was practiced. This was a system. My stomach churned, but I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there letting the truth settle in. It didn't crush me the way I thought it would. It didn't even surprise me. What shocked me was how calm I felt. How clear everything suddenly was. I'd spent months, maybe longer, doubting myself. Gaslighting myself, if I'm honest. Telling myself I was paranoid, insecure, ungrateful. I had been cataloging inconsistencies like a detective without a case. But now I had my confirmation. She was cheating on me. And she wasn't sorry. Not really. Not in any way that mattered. I knew what came next. I had already imagined it 100 different ways in my head. The confrontation. The tears. The promises. The blame. The manipulation. The begging. But none of it mattered anymore. I didn't want her to explain. I didn't want her to cry or confess or twist the story into something salvageable. I didn't want her to say it was a mistake. I didn't want her to pretend like it just happened. Because I knew the truth now. It didn't just happen. It happened because she chose it. Because she chose him. Again and again. I looked around the room, my eyes landing on little artifacts of our life, books we never finished, photos we never framed, souvenirs from places we said we'd go back to someday. And I felt nothing. Not anger. Not loss. Just a kind of quiet vacancy. Like someone had walked out of a room and left the light on. Taylor didn't know I was home. She went about the rest of the day like nothing had changed. She texted me around 5 asking how the trip was going. I stared at the message for a long time before finally replying. Running behind. I'll call later. That was it. No heart emoji. No inside joke. Just distance. That night, she made herself pasta and watched TV in bed. I stayed in the guest room. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't say anything. She fell asleep around midnight. I could hear her breathing through the wall. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. Because now I had what I needed. Not revenge. Not closure. Just truth. And that was more than enough. I didn't sleep much that night. Maybe an hour. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to picture how it had all come to this. Not the cheating, not the lies, I mean the slow, almost invisible way someone you love becomes a stranger sleeping beside you. By 5 a.m. I was up. The house was silent, the kind of silence that's so deep it hums. Taylor was still asleep in the master bedroom, probably wrapped in the same blanket we'd picked out together 2 winters ago, the one she insisted on because it felt like being hugged. That thought didn't make me angry. It just felt distant, like it had happened in another life. I moved through the house with a strange calm. No adrenaline. No panic. Just a kind of deliberate stillness, like every motion had already been rehearsed. And in a way, it had. The night before, after everything, I'd opened my laptop and started collecting things. Not just the recording. That was just the tip. I had the Uber receipts. *TS of text messages I'd seen pop up on her screen. The hotel charge from last month, the one she said was a conference in the city. I cross-checked that with the company's official event calendar. There was no conference. There was never a conference. I had timestamps, voice memos, *TS photos. I had a list of dates that suddenly made sense in hindsight: days she came home later than usual, weekends she said she was at the office or grabbing drinks with the girls. And then I had names. One name, really. I didn't know much about him. Still don't. Just what I heard. His voice, too casual, too comfortable. His laugh wrapped around hers like it belonged there. I didn't need to know more. I didn't want to. He wasn't the problem. She was. By the time the sun rose, I had gathered everything I needed. I didn't pack clothes. Didn't touch the closet. I didn't want anything from that space anymore. Instead, I filled a simple black backpack with 3 things: my laptop, the hard drive with all the evidence, and my passport. I tucked my phone charger in the side pocket and looped my house keys onto a carabiner. The rest? It could stay. Let her have the furniture, the framed photos, the records we never played anymore. Let her have the life she wanted to keep polishing for social media. Before I left, I walked into the bedroom one last time. She was sleeping, face half buried in the pillow. Peaceful. Innocent looking. It almost made me sick. I didn't wake her. Didn't say goodbye. Instead, I placed my wedding ring on her pillow right where her eyes would land when she rolled over. Next to it, I left an unsealed envelope. Inside was everything. Not an accusation. Not a rant. Just a list. Receipts. Names. Dates. Places. A screen grab of her second phone's call history. The voice memo file number. At the bottom, I wrote 6 words. You don't get to rewrite this. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was just deliberate. Like pulling a fire alarm in an empty building. She wouldn't hear the sirens until I was long gone. I stepped out of the bedroom and closed the door behind me. Not softly. Not gently. Just closed it. Then I walked down the stairs, picked up my bag, and left the house. I didn't lock the door. The air outside was cool and damp, the kind of early morning stillness that makes everything feel a little more fragile. The world was waking up, stretching into a new day, and I was stepping out of the old one. I got in the car and drove. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. The streets were mostly empty. I didn't have a destination yet, just the need to put distance between myself and that house. By the time the city skyline disappeared in my rearview mirror, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. No more pretending. No more waiting. No more wondering what version of Taylor would walk through the door each night. No more lying to myself, trying to salvage something that had already sunk. At a gas station 30 miles out, I pulled over and checked into a motel. One of those places that smelled like old coffee and bleach with a front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. The room was basic: 2 lamps, a worn armchair, a bedspread with faded floral patterns. Perfect. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my laptop, checking the backups one last time. Everything was there, neatly organized, time-stamped, and stored in the cloud. Not for revenge. Not to hurt her. Just to protect myself. If she tried to flip the narrative, say I'd abandoned her, say I'd changed, I'd have the facts. Not to win. Just to stay whole. Then I shut the laptop and lay back, staring at the ceiling tiles. For the first time in a long time, I felt weightless. Not happy. Not healed. Just unchained. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no confrontations, no yelling matches. No screaming in the rain or begging for truth. Just a silent exit. A statement made not through words but through absence. I knew she'd wake up confused. Then furious. Then afraid. She'd text me. Call me. Maybe cry. Maybe scream. She'd try to spin it. Say I was being irrational. That we needed to talk. That there were things I didn't understand. But none of that mattered now. Because I was done understanding. I wasn't out for revenge. I didn't want to ruin her life. I didn't want to expose her. I just wanted her to know that I saw her clearly now, and I chose to walk away with my dignity intact. She'd feel the silence. She'd feel the absence. She'd feel the chill of a door left open behind someone who decided not to slam it but simply leave. And maybe in that silence she'd realize something. That the scariest kind of goodbye is the one that doesn't need to be shouted. It's the one where someone simply stops trying. I didn't vanish. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up in a story that was no longer mine to save. And as I lay in that cheap motel room with my backpack by the door and the sunrise peeking through the blinds, I finally understood something simple and sharp. Sometimes the loudest statement you can make is none at all. The first call came just after 8 a.m. I hadn't even unpacked. The motel room still smelled like lemon disinfectant and stale air. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, sipping bad coffee from a plastic cup, staring at the muted TV when her name lit up my screen. Taylor. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. No message. 5 minutes later, she called again. Then again. The third time, she left a voicemail, voice tight and confused. Hey, can you call me? I woke up and I saw the ring. I don't know what's going on, but can we talk? I didn't respond. I turned my phone off for the rest of the day. It wasn't about punishment. I wasn't trying to make her suffer. I just didn't have anything left to say. The moment I walked out of that house, the version of me she knew, the patient, forgiving, loyal version, stopped existing. He'd been buried under too many small lies and late-night whispers she thought I'd never hear. By evening, I turned the phone back on. 6 missed calls. 3 voicemails. 2 texts. Taylor, can you please just talk to me? I'm scared. Taylor, this isn't the way to handle things. I didn't respond. I put the phone face down and ordered Chinese food from the nearest open place. By midnight, she tried a different approach. Mutual friends started messaging me. One from her work, one from our shared circle back in college. Casual greetings wrapped in concern. Hey man, Taylor's worried. Everything okay? You around? Taylor's trying to reach you. Sounds urgent. Still, I said nothing. Because if I responded to one, I'd have to respond to all of them. And I'd made a decision, no more defending my silence. No more patching holes in a sinking ship. The truth was in that envelope I left on her pillow. She could read it. She could live with it. That was her weight now. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a notification. Taylor had posted a photo. Our bedroom. Taken from the hallway. The ring still on the pillow, glinting in the early light. The envelope next to it, unsealed but untouched. Her caption was a single sentence. Sometimes people just leave. The comments came fast. Heart emojis. Prayers. Stay strong, girl. No one asked what she'd done. No one thought to. She had curated the narrative carefully like she always did. The loyal wife, blindsided and abandoned. The victim of sudden emotional distance. It was impressive, honestly. In less than 24 hours, she had transformed from a woman caught mid-affair to a symbol of heartbreak and resilience. And I let her have it. I didn't comment. I didn't DM anyone. I didn't send the *TS to mutuals or leak the recording or play her game in reverse. That wasn't why I saved the evidence. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And I already had it. I checked back in on her profile later that day, morbid curiosity, I guess. She'd added a story. Black background. White text. I don't know what I did to deserve this. I almost laughed. It would have been easier, I think, if she'd owned it. If she'd gone online and said, I messed up, I betrayed someone who loved me. But she couldn't. Not because of pride and not just because of shame, but because she needed the story to stay in her hands. She needed the likes, the sympathy, the illusion. I watched it all unfold like I was a ghost at my own funeral. Our friends, or at least the ones still orbiting her, flooded her comments with encouragement. You're so strong. He'll come back. Whatever happened, you'll rise above it. I didn't interfere. I let them build her back up. Because I knew what came next. Within 48 hours, she rebranded. Her profile picture changed to a candid photo, sunlight hitting her hair, eyes glassy with the right amount of sorrow. Her bio updated, healing, growing, learning to breathe again. She posted inspirational quotes, started resharing videos about boundaries and emotional healing. Even hinted at starting a blog. The irony was painful, but also oddly predictable. Because Taylor was always 2 steps ahead when it came to public perception. She knew how to build a version of herself that people wanted to root for. She was playing the long game, but I'd already forfeited the match. I checked into a second motel 3 towns over. Paid cash. Used a different name. Not because I was hiding from her, but because I needed the silence to stay intact. I needed the air around me to be mine, free from the echoes of a voice that used to sound like home. For days, I existed in a kind of blank haze. I walked through local parks, ate greasy food at diners, scribbled down thoughts in a notebook I picked up at a gas station. I didn't call anyone. Didn't explain. The only person I reached out to was my boss, requested 2 weeks of remote leave, citing family complications. He didn't press. I didn't offer details. One evening, while sitting outside a convenience store with a styrofoam cup of coffee, I logged into an anonymous online forum. No names. No details. Just truth. I wrote a post. Not to vent, not to accuse, just to speak. To finally, fully let it out. I titled it, Walking Away Isn't Weakness. And I wrote, I loved her. I loved her through every version of herself, even the ones she crafted for other people. I gave her time, grace, patience. But she gave me calculation. She gave me polished lies dressed as explanations. I left not because I stopped loving her, but because she stopped being someone I could trust. I have the proof. I have the facts. But I'm not here to drag her. I'm here to tell someone, anyone, that choosing peace over performance isn't cowardice. It's survival. If you're in it, I see you. If you're doubting yourself, I've been there. And if you've just now realized that love without truth isn't really love at all, welcome. You're not broken. You're waking up. It didn't go viral. But people responded. Some shared their own stories. Some said thank you. Some said they'd been waiting for the courage to do the same. And for the first time since I'd left, I felt something inside me settle. Not heal. Not yet. But settle. I didn't need to be seen. I just needed to be real. I gave it a week before I touched the joint account. Not out of mercy, just strategy. I needed time to map the next steps while she kept spinning her version of events. When I finally logged in, it was like dissecting a living thing. She'd been siphoning small amounts every other day, probably assuming I wouldn't notice. Subscriptions I'd never heard of. Deliveries sent to addresses I didn't recognize. So I withdrew my half. Not a penny more, not a penny less. I left the balance just above zero, right next to the trail of transactions she thought were secret. Then I called our landlord and gave notice. I'd signed the lease alone before we got married, another thing she probably forgot. I told them I'd vacate within the week and pay through the end of the month. That same night, I filed a change of address form and switched to paperless billing. I wasn't disappearing. I was just deleting the version of me that had existed with her. My new home was a motel on the edge of town. No keycards, just old-fashioned metal keys with faded tags. The sign outside flickered vacancy like a broken promise. But inside, it was quiet. Honest. No framed photos of a life we were faking. No passive-aggressive sticky notes about chores. No scent of guilt masked in expensive perfume. Just 4 walls, my laptop, and a nightstand drawer full of stillness. That evening, I posted one last update to the forum. She's still performing, but I'm out of the audience. The house is hers now, along with the debt and the silence. I've stopped trying to convince people of my side. It's not a war I want to win. I just want peace. And for the first time, I think I'm close. I logged off and didn't check the replies. Time became elastic after that. Some days flew by in minutes. Others dragged like wet cement. But the absence of chaos felt like healing, even when it hurt. I didn't follow Taylor's new life, though pieces drifted to me anyway. Friends texted. *TS circulated. She'd become a speaker on emotional resilience, no less. Launched a blog. Hosted online workshops titled Rediscovering Yourself Through Pain. She never mentioned my name. Not directly. But her stories? They painted me clearly enough, the withdrawn husband, emotionally absent, cold in the final days. A man who disconnected without explanation. I didn't correct her. I didn't need to. Because truth doesn't need an audience to exist. Instead, I started painting again. Abstract shapes, bold strokes. Colors I hadn't dared to use when I was with her. It was messy and uncertain, but it was mine. And then, one morning, it happened. I was sitting at a cafe, sketching on a napkin while waiting for my coffee when a woman approached. Mid-30s. Denim jacket. She smiled and handed me something. My keys, she said, laughing. You dropped them. I looked down, my spare keychain had slipped from my pocket. We exchanged a few words. Just that. Just words. But they weren't rehearsed. They weren't part of some performance. They were real. And in that small, quiet moment I realized something. I didn't need vindication. I didn't need to be remembered as the one who was right. I just needed space. Stillness. Something honest. And finally I had it.